Are you tired of playing small and ready to step confidently into your greatness and share your unique brilliance with the world? Well, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and I've dedicated nearly 2 decades to empowering individuals and leaders as they confidently navigate the twists and turns of life and career transitions. If you're seeking direction, connection, or just a little push to play bigger, consider this podcast your VIP pass to a community that genuinely understands your journey. Join me every week for candid conversations and practical guidance designed to help you navigate the challenges of life and business, foster a growth mindset, and cultivate meaningful connections. It's time to embrace your inherent power, define your unique purpose, and prosper in every aspect of your life. Let's get started. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and I'm so excited to be continuing this Power of Money series with Miss Raquel Wilson. So Raquel is an award-winning educator, published author, and international speaker. She's formerly a teacher, and she is also a certified financial education instructor and serves as the CEO for Raise the Bar Investments, a minority-friendly personal finance education social enterprise, furthering her personal mission to close the gender and racial wealth gap. With that, welcome to the show, Raquel.
Thank you so much for having me, Sabine. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you for that lovely introduction. I just humbly call myself an educator, so an entrepreneur. I saw real world issues in my classroom during the pandemic and wanted to create solutions. So everything that I do is really centered around community empowerment, community education, and empowering us to build wealth for our life.
All right. So tell us a little bit about your journey, because you have had a very unique journey in a short period of time. And so I just want you to share with the world how you've been able to, really navigate and create your own economy, so to speak, while you're also trying to teach and support people and doing it on their own.
Well, my journey starts in Ohio, although I'm based in Oklahoma. I'm from the original O State. And my parents could not afford to invest in anything typical. They couldn't invest in stocks, bonds, even the home that my parents ended up purchasing. We ended up losing it later in life. But one thing they did invest in, and something that sustained me throughout all of that traumatic upbringing, was my education. My parents always invested in my education, made sure I went to the best schools, even if I was the only person for miles and miles up on end in my neighborhood to have access to that. They showed me the importance of it. So going from a small town in Ohio to studying at Ohio State how our wellness is affected by things around us, including our education, to moving to Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, it was an entire journey. But I'll say education is a thread, or more so what is threading through my life. And education is what drives me to drive others, even with the individuals that I work with, whether it be students or community members or even folks that I mentor online and coach online. They always speak to the transformations that they've experienced due to the education. So really education has always been a part of my life through trauma, through triumph, and I continue to aim to grow in that every day.
Awesome. I love it. So tell us how obviously you have a couple of things going on right now, but for the most part, when it comes to working with individuals on their finances, and I definitely want to talk about the books that you've written as well, how do you support individuals who come to you with, really planning out their financial future with the mindset and the understanding that the goal is to build long-term wealth and legacy?
You said a key thing right there. It starts with the mindset. When I was in the classroom, I would often have students that wouldn't be able to be in their most optimal mindset of learning because they had things going on at home. They didn't have breakfast that morning. They, had family members arguing within the household. And similarly, when we think about our money mindset or our wealth journey, it all starts with how do we engage with money? When I have to go pay a bill, how does that make me feel inside? When I think about how I first engaged with money as a child, or even my role models and those that I looked up to as a child, how did they engage with money and what did that teach me? Everything when it comes to educating about financial wellness and about our wealth journey comes back to our mindset. So that's why my first book is called Holistic Money Mindset, Mental Preparation for Abundance. And for those that are serious about creating wealth and really changing the trajectory of their last name. I always say it's important to start with educating yourself on your own money mindset, your own money traumas, and moving forward with that.
So you just said something there. For those who are interested in changing the trajectory of their last name, talk a little more about that.
Absolutely. Well, if you're like me, then you're a first generation wealth builder. Like I said, my parents couldn't afford to invest in anything traditional. And for me, especially as an only child, as a woman, the Wilson, for me as Raquel Wilson, the Wilson last name holds a lot for me. Some people do like the trajectory of their last name and their family history. Some people don't. But what I think we all have the agency to do in this day and age is create the life that we desire, which I believe is through education. So that's what I mean when I say creating change for our last name.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right, so we have a lot to cover here. We can definitely talk about the ins and outs of personal finance, right? And how important that is, which I'm sure we'll touch into. But as the big visionary that you are, right? Like you're looking at this from the standpoint of what does this look like? What does the narrative of wealth look like in, underrepresented communities 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? And certainly what does that look like for women as a younger woman who has literally just changed the entire trajectory of your life? What were some of the things, and we'll go into specifics in terms of details of the how to, but what were some of the things early on in your life and early on in your career that triggered this understanding for you, or even you caught the glimpse that, wow, if I want to, and if I put my mind to this, like I could literally change the game for myself and for others?
Mm-hmm. Well, to even set the stage and tell a little bit more backstory, within my first 2 years of teaching, which I was teaching in Oklahoma, which is one of the lowest paid states for teachers. But within 2 years of teaching, I was able to pay off my student loans from my investing profit, right? So no student loans. I'm very thankful for that. And I say that because it wasn't able to happen overnight. And I think that we as women, we naturally have our intuition and we know that sometimes things take time. But I think sometimes as women, we can be perfectionists. And I would say that don't let perfection be the enemy of getting started. If you're wanting to learn how to invest, if you're wanting to learn how to create change for your last name, it's important to just go get started. And even when we look at the statistics, we see that about 60%, specifically of Black women, have no assets invested. So when I saw that statistic and I knew that education, as has been before, has been the key for many things for me, I knew that education was the key to learning how to invest. I decided to put those two together. There is an opportunity for me to grow. There's an opportunity for me to learn. Let's put this together, see what happens. And that's what resulted in not only me accomplishing that wealth goal at the age of 23, buying my home before 25, and now working on new wealth goals as well. So I would say the triggers for me were just looking at the cold hard facts, seeing what was around us and deciding, I don't like those statistics. I don't like that reality for me. So how can I change that? How can I create change not only for me, for my last name, by doing the work?
Yeah. So you said obviously the education was the vehicle. Did you register with a financial advisor, or was it just like reading books or Google University? Like what vehicles or tools did you use to support you in your education?
Great question. Early on, it was a lot of hours searching the internet, and I really found that there wasn't a lot of information that was easy to understand and easy to apply, especially written from a perspective like mine, which is why I created my books to fill that gap in the market, so people don't have to spend as many hours as I did searching for all of those resources. However, I did hit a wall. Of course, when you're just searching on the answers of the web, it's not always reputable. And again, as I mentioned, it's not really written towards you. So then I did become a certified financial education instructor through the National Financial Educators Council. And that really added a lot of, standards-based education to my life experience and education. One of the things that entered me into my wealth journey and entered me into investing was trading. I used to day trade, which for those of you that are not familiar with investing versus trading, as I explained in my book, Day trading is more of a short-term form of leveraging the markets and selling and buying stocks, assets, foreign exchange, different things. Whereas investing is usually more long-term. For example, over a year, you are holding or buying and holding an asset. So going from this very hustle mindset and this very busy space of day trading, I realized what I did and didn't like. I learned about myself while I was learning about how to be a CFEI and learning from Google and things in limited fashion. So I think it was important for me not only to pursue formal credentials, but also to be reflective while I was learning and educating myself and really thinking, okay, there's so many ways to approach personal finance. What is the best way to make personal finance personal for me and reach my wealth goals?
Yeah. So I have the same, I think we talked about this when we met last time. I have the same designation and the same certification. And at the time I pursued it for two reasons. One, for me personally, just to strengthen my understanding. And then I had this vision of, like supporting people in their finances and whatnot. Yeah, clearly that was short-lived. But I am grateful for the learning and the experience, and because the council, they are so passionate, like they really invest a lot in making sure that they're up to date. They allow their coaches or their consultants, whatever we're titled, to have access to resources, because that is the foundational desire of the council, to really educate or make financial literacy accessible to more and more. And I think, I forget what, back when I studied it was probably like 2016. It was so startling, the statistics around financial literacy or illiteracy. Yeah. More so than anything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like even now to this day, I'm still curious as to why they don't teach basic finances in schools, or at least in high school at the very least. Cause then, people have part-time jobs, they're making money, like just the understanding of how do you really empower yourself financially, since money is such a big part of our world and our society. But yeah, total aside. So I'm glad that you took the course and you are now fully involved and engaged in doing that work. Maybe it was a time of sowing for me, and at some point in my career, I'll pick it back up. But nonetheless, thank you for that. So let's talk about, you're in Tulsa, and I asked you this question when we first met, that, did you know that you would end up, like, was this part of the strategy? Was it intentional? Because really over the last, 3 years, ever since, the pandemic and the social uprising, that's where all of this awareness has been brought back to Tulsa and Black Wall Street and all of the things that happen, and the status that people of color used to have, particularly Black people used to have there. So it's not ironic. I know everything happens for a reason. So you didn't intend to end up there, but you are there. So how is that experience, being there, being literally on the land and the territory and the space, affluence and wealth once existed, and now they're trying to bring it back? What is that experience like for you?
It shows the importance of placement. It shows the importance of environment. I hope it inspires everyone that is thinking about either a location change or career change, that if you align yourself with the right opportunities and the right people, that you can create the change that you not only desire, but we're sent on this earth to change. So I will say I did not want to move to Tulsa initially, even back when I was in kindergarten as a 5-year-old. I remember saying, I don't want to be a teacher. They don't make enough money. Of course, I came here to teach. And in college, saying that I don't want to be a business owner, it's too much responsibility. And of course, here I am now owning 2 businesses here. So I'll say this, even though I did not want to come to Tulsa, it's really shown initially, it's really shown me the value in just getting out there and trying things. I believe for those that are thinking about how can I accelerate my success in my life, just get out there and try things, really have a high level of self-awareness, know your values, know your non-negotiables, and then explore. And that's why I've made a home in Tulsa. That's why I quite literally have a home here, love it here, contribute to the community here, consider myself a community leader here, because there's so much opportunity to change things. So no, it was not initially planned. I encourage everyone to visit Tulsa, Black Wall Street, Greenwood, at least once in your life.
Absolutely. And so one thing, and I don't want to gloss over this, is that you mentioned that you were able to buy your house with cryptocurrency, right? So like that's, again, another level of I'm going to learn something new and then actually leverage that to really change and shift. What got you into crypto?
Yes. So I was able to pay for my student loans with my cryptocurrency profit and then continuing those goals and of course continuing to invest, which allowed me to also buy my home. So what got me interested in cryptocurrency, throwback again to day trading. I was initially day trading the US dollar, the Mexican peso. These are different foreign exchange. To catch anyone up to speed, you can trade different currencies across the entire world. That's a great diversification method for those that already have balanced portfolios. You can learn more in my second book, Personal Finance Crash Course, what they didn't teach you in school. But what initially got me interested in investing in crypto was day trading. And I wasn't having as much success doing it on the fast-paced short-term market. So that led to me wanting to grow in my investment skills. I learned about due diligence. I learned how to evaluate a company to actually determine, is this one of those cryptocurrency companies that's going to just vanish tomorrow? Or is this a cryptocurrency company that actually has sound backing, that has a sound business model, is actually solving a problem in the world? And even when I was paying off my student loans with my cryptocurrency profit, the coin that I invested in was called, it's blanking on me right now. I'll put it in the comments afterward. But its utility was focused on sending remittances back home to those that lived in countries like India or lived within the continent of Africa. And I understood that, wait, this actually solves a real problem for people. I understood that, wait, this market size is actually very large. Compound, that's the name of the coin, Compound. So you can go back, check it out. During the time that I invested in it, it was able to grow over 300%. But the problem with cryptocurrency that a lot of people often forget is, number one, what are your goals? And number two, what are your values? As someone that's family oriented, that asset aligned with my values. And also as someone that knew I wanted to pay off my student loan, that aligned with my goals. So once that coin reached that level of growth that let me get to my goal, I withdrew. And I also kept in mind other tax things and other things that I talk about in due diligence. But that's really how I got interested in cryptocurrency, seeing the value that it had growth, but also seeing that, hey, in this specific format of day trading, I wasn't having the most success. So then moving myself into a category of trading that allowed me to have more success, allowed me to have more time freedom, and allowed me to reach my goals, which allowed me to pay off my student loans.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So obviously you work with individuals at like the student level to like full-blown adults who are really trying to get a handle on their finances. As it relates to women in particular, in the work and the support that you provide, where are you seeing some of the pitfalls, if you will, or some of the challenges that women are having when it comes to really, creating that plan, sticking to that plan, and building out their wealth strategies?
Well, it's something that I foreshadowed to earlier, actually doing the work. When we look online at what women are searching in relation to personal finance, they're doing the Google, they're researching, how can I rebuild after divorce? Or how much will it cost me to have a divorce? How much money do I need to have saved in relation to that specific topic for women and financial insecurity? We're seeing that especially Black women are researching on reaching out to nonprofits and financial organizations to find out how to do the work. However, as I mentioned earlier, we actually have to pull the trigger. We actually have to do the work, which leads me to question, well, why aren't the current solutions on the market empowering people to do the work? And that's why I'm building For Our Last Names, to empower people to bridge the gap between education and investing.
Okay. Based on the clients that you work with, and I can't remember if you work with one-on-one clients or with clients one-on-one, but what I get the do the work part, right? Like people aren't willing to do the work because, you hear cryptocurrency and people are just like, oh, I don't want any parts. Like that sounds complicated, investments. And obviously, for the most part, right? And I know this is a generalization, but like women have a lot of responsibilities, right? They're taking care of the home, they're, working, they're doing all of the things. What do you perceive to be the biggest mindset challenge, or maybe even the story behind not being able to do the work or willing to do the work?
And I think it's interesting that you said able or willing. I would even push it further and say, um, going back to empowered, not being empowered to do the work, because women are fully capable, right? Women are able to do it. We can do the work. I would say that part of it comes back to a systems issue. Because when we think about even 50 years ago, and 60 years ago, 70 years ago, women couldn't have bank accounts. So when we think about the stories we tell ourselves, well, what were the stories we were told by our mothers and our grandmothers? And what is the story that society told us about our value and our ability to have ownership? So I think that's the first thing on the systemic level. On the individual level, I think that's where imposter syndrome comes in. Am I able to make a sound decision? Am I that emotional woman that they claim that I am? Right. So I would say that it's a both and, both systemic and both individual, which is why it's so important to start on that mindset journey first. Even when I think about my book series, the Black Wealth Freedom series, the first book, which is focused on money mindset and abundance, is a bestseller for women. Whereas my second book, Personal Finance Crash Course, What They Didn't Teach You in School, is a bestseller for men. I think this shows that men oftentimes are skipping that emotional intelligence part, skipping the mindset part, but they're ready to hop into action. Whereas women do want to lean into that intuition, do want to heal, but once they get part, they're more apprehensive to make the action again to those individual and systemic issues. So that's what I've seen from my research, as well as just engaging with our clients.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating. So, my audience, for the most part, for those who tune in, it's a nice even balance between those who are in entrepreneurship as well as those who are in traditional work environments. And so if we could just kind of split them up for those who are in traditional work environments, where obviously they have their 401k, they're doing the savings and whatnot, but they really want to level up, or they really want to take it to the next step and say, okay, you know what? I don't want to work forever, and I want to figure out a strategy and a plan to allow my money to work for me. What are some of the vehicles or some of the avenues that they can start to look at to help support them, while they still have this regular full-time job paycheck coming in?
Absolutely. Such a great question, especially considering that I started both of my businesses while being a full-time employee, one of which while being a full-time teacher throughout the pandemic. So that was extremely difficult. I would say number one, think about your streams of income. I like to think about income like a table. It's better to have a table that has multiple legs instead of one leg in the center. Because if that one leg drops, AKA your one job as your one stream of income, then that means that the whole table falls. But if you focus on building additional streams of income, which I'll talk about some methods in a moment, then you'll have the opportunity to have more financial flexibility. I know some people say financial freedom as well, right? So if another pandemic comes, or a life emergency comes, or a family emergency comes, which affects one of your streams of income, AKA one of the legs on the table, at least the table can still stand. At least you're still standing, right? So some ways to think about creating additional streams of income beyond investing, as we talked so thoroughly about in this conversation. I would say number one, real estate. You can think about this in a physical real estate term. There are ways to invest in what we like to call REITs, AKA real estate investment trusts. And there are ways to basically invest in small portions of, say, a large apartment complex, or even we think about the Dollar General stores, right? You can invest in a portion of that. So you don't have to have thousands of dollars available to, say, buy a home, get a down payment, all of those different things. Now, aside from physical real estate in the form of REITs or buying your own property, there's also digital real estate. And that's something that's becoming very popular in 2023 and beyond, because we know the power that exists online. We just have to actually tap into it. So digital real estate can look like podcasts, for example, where you're able to receive income from ads. It can look like YouTube, to where you can also receive money from your digital impact, what you discuss, your thought leadership, advertising as well. TikTok is also another place where you can create digital real estate and create income from that, right? So I would categorize real estate as a whole, physical or digital. That's a very large way that people are expanding on multiple streams in this day and age. Of course, there's always the old fashioned getting started with your business. I like to think about business in itself as multiple streams too. So you can have a book business. Raise the Bar initially was a book business, but we've expanded now into speaking. We've expanded now into contracting. We just closed a contract with a high school system over in DC to provide financial literacy to their seniors and juniors. So I would also say that for my ladies and folks that are thinking about starting their business while they are employed, it's okay to start with just one product, but also think about how can I develop the multiple streams even within this business. So for the sake of time, I'll just mention those: starting your business, real estate with digital and physical, and of course, investing, which is where we help you.
Yeah, I love that. I guess, never looked at like the digital content creation, if you will, as real estate. So that's a mind shift that I'm taking away from this. So hopefully for those of you who are listening and who are watching or will catch the replay, you're picking up what she's putting down here, that there's a lot of ways to look at, not just the creation of money, but really how do we grow and how do we keep it? I think our society is really big on teaching us how to make money, right? Like there's no shortage of ways to make money, especially with the gig economy and everything else. But really strategically, how do you grow money? How do you multiply it? That I feel like that's where the biggest gap is in the market as it relates to financial literacy or financial efficacy. And certainly for women who are just trying to navigate all of the things that they do. So, and you touched on this, especially with the business owners, right? So for the most part, a lot of individuals, especially within the last couple of years, I don't know the specific statistics, but, women have started businesses at record numbers over the last couple of years. And Black women in particular have started businesses. And so it's basically what you said, took a skill, figured something out, and now they're starting the businesses. But, for a lot of us, right, when you first start out, when you don't have examples, there's a learning curve there. And, the revenue that comes in is either getting re-put back into the business to invest or to bring on team and whatnot. So for someone who has recently started their business where, maybe they are profitable, maybe they are, generating revenue, but they're also like, I don't want to put any money away because this is like my livelihood, or I'm not sure I have enough. What do you recommend, especially in those beginning phases of really creating that balance and having that longer term strategy at the forefront?
Great question. Well, I'll go into the what and then the how. It's always important to plan for your future self as well as plan for your future business. So in the same way, when we think about just maintaining yourself as an asset, number one, you are an asset. You are your best asset. Give yourself a hug and thank yourself that you are here to take care of yourself. All right. So when we think even about business formation and business documents and personal documents, I like to think about wills. Wills are how you protect yourself in the future, right? So in the same way, a business plan is how you protect your business in the future. Well, how can you achieve these plans? On a personal side, there's things like budgeting and wealth planning, but specifically on the business side, since that's what your question was around, I would say that it's so important that we think about how can we expand our revenue sources beyond what we're providing, but also through methods like grants, through methods like angel investing, through methods like VC. My first book was actually, we won a $2,500 grant and we were able to launch our first book because of that. And for simply just telling our story, talking about our business plan, all you need to do is first plan the what, get to the what, and then you can find how afterwards. So I would say that it's important for women who are in business or people that are in business and are thinking about, well, how can I expand this? Maybe I'm not ready to expand my product line or my service line or make additional streams of revenue through what I'm providing, but maybe I can find a way to tell my story to new people. And when we think about social capital could also lead to fiscal capital. So think about, as business owners, how can I grow in my social status? How can I grow in my relationships so I can tell the story of my business? And all good businesses solve real world problems. So if you're really solving a real world problem, it should be hard to not talk about your story. So get really good at storytelling, and that will impact your bottom line as a business owner.
Love it. Thank you. For those who are listening, who are thinking to themselves that they want to invest in the book, depending on where they are, what are some key pieces that you think, would like this book for the person who's looking for this, or this book for the person who's looking for that?
Absolutely. Well, the Black Wealth Freedom series is a book that's written for us, by us, especially as someone that read Think and Grow Rich and all of these other personal finance books that are so popular and didn't see any of them written by me or for me, I wrote this for us by us. However, of course, anyone can learn from this book. It's chock full of information that anyone can apply. Our first book, Holistic Money Mindset, Mental Preparation for Abundance, is for the true beginner in their personal finance journey, the person that feels so stressed and anxiety filled whenever they think about money. That book is for you. All right. The second book, Personal Finance Crash Course, What They Didn't Teach You in School, is really that chock full of book that has all of the information you need to know on saving, credit, budgeting, and even beginner investing. And then our third book, the Money Moves Workbook, Achieving Your Wealth Goals in 12 Months or Less, is the same reflective and proactive budget workbook that I used when I was moving halfway across the country, when I was paying off my student loans, leveraging my investment profits, when I was buying my first car, which at the time was a dream car, but now I'm even going towards more. And also the same budget that I used when I was buying my home before 25 years old. So if you are someone that feels like you've got your money mindset down, you know how to walk in abundance, money doesn't stress you out. If you're someone that feels like you have the basics down of personal finance, saving, credit, all of those things that I mentioned in book 2, then book 3 is a great tool for you to put in the work, to plan ahead of time and reflect and then adjust your scope based off of that. The entire series is easy to understand and easy to apply. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the curriculum that I wrote for my seniors is what turned into the second book. And because of that curriculum that I wrote, in Oklahoma, it's a requirement to have personal finance before you graduate. We had a 93% graduation rate, which is about 15% higher than the rest of the area. So it's working in the classroom, it's working in the boardroom, it's working in our community rooms. I've had folks that buy it that are in their 20s. Their parent will end up stealing it and then they'll read it with like a younger sibling. So I like to say these reach ages 6 to 60 and beyond. So if you are someone that wants to find an easy to understand, easy to apply way to ease into personal finance and reach your wealth goals, the Black Wealth Freedom Series is for you.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And we'll talk about your website and how to get in touch with you. But before we do that and to wrap up, to be mindful of your time, we're going to go through the blitz session here. So three questions. So first one up, as you think about what you've been able to accomplish, and I don't know if you guys have been paying attention in terms of what this genius is or how old this genius is. But she is still in her 20s and she has accomplished, and this is not a dig by any means, but, things that people much older have not been able to accomplish. So, kudos to you for that. And so I know, I'm pretty sure you can answer this, but I just wanted to put that out there that, you still got some living to do and you've already accomplished a lot in the time that you've been here. But when you think about, what you've been able to accomplish so far, if you could go back to a younger version of yourself and give her some advice that you think would have been a game changer for her, or for you, what might that be?
Trust the process, which can mean so many different things. I mean, I know that God placed me here for a reason. There's even like a large story around my birth and me potentially not even being here, but here I am and my purpose is here in front of me. So I would just tell my younger self to trust God, trust the purpose, continue to explore and try new things. That has been, those pieces of advice there have been what has opened the most doors for me and also closed the doors that are not aligned for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to detour real quick. I would imagine, right? Like obviously you're a quick study and a quick learner. Do you intentionally keep a lot of mentors in your circle?
Oh, yes. Mentorship is important. And accountability is very important for me. I'm someone that will walk in a room and start doing something and then remember something else in another room. So mentorship is very important, not only to learn from someone, but also so they can help you stay accountable. Even shouting out some websites, sky'sthelimit.org. You can get free mentorship on there, as well as free grants on there. That's where all of my advisory board members came from. So they helped me really grow my first business and also helped me realize, wait, Raquel, you're doing something revolutionary with For Our Last Names. You need to get that out on the market. So they've even been able to push me. So I would say mentors are so important for your journey. And once you feel like you've had some level of success, don't forget to give back and mentor as well.
Love it. Thank you. And so let's future forecast for a moment here. You're 30, 40, 50, 60, however many years down the line, and you are looking at your life and the impact that you've made, what do you want that legacy to be?
So here's it. Legacy is very important to me, which is even why I say the brand being for our last names, building wealth for our last names, right? So I would say that in 60 years, For Our Last Names has empowered over 1 million families to build generational wealth. I would say that I don't know what the format will be, but I hope to create something that can empower entrepreneurs, especially those underrepresented by race, class, or gender, to practice stewardship and build businesses that bring the kingdom on earth, that bring good on earth, right? I know that my faith is something that very much so influences me as a social good and entrepreneur. So I would say that 60 years from now, there's some type of philanthropy or fund that I've contributed to or created that does good in the world and can give the capital and resources to empower others to do that as well for generations.
Love it. Thank you. And then last question, you obviously you have your books, right? But you also indicated that you are big on reading as part of your, your learning journey. So are there any books or is there one book that, you've read along your journey that you felt was, again, another game changer for you and something that maybe you go back to regularly or recommend to clients?
2 books. One that I read last year that changed my life. And I think especially for women that feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much. How can I find more time to do something? There's only 24 hours in a day, so there is not more time, but I'll tell you a book that will give you a hack. It's called Who, Not How. And it talks about delegation. When I brought on an assistant to run my business or run the operations of my business while I was operating in my zone of genius and the things that I like to do as a CEO, not only did I find more time in that 24-hour day, but I also found myself having more mental wellness. And that even flashes back to imposter syndrome because at first I felt like I didn't deserve an assistant. I felt like I wasn't worthy of having an assistant. Who am I to put together a grocery list and have someone order that on behalf of me? But then I realized how much time that freed up on the back end and how much the higher level of mental wellness that I was able to experience. So check out Who, Not How and get to delegating in your life. All right. The second book I read back in college and I try to read it at least every year, every other year. And it's called Atomic Habits. Our life is built around the habits that we have, even within the For Our Last Names app. We're building in some really great habit building and habit forming exercises so people can find it easier to achieve success on their wealth journey. So those will be my 2 my 2 book recommendations, Who, Not How and Atomic Habit.
Both of which I have sitting in Audible. Like I've the Who Not How is like my next read. That's been a growth opportunity for me. And it's been recommended so many times where I was just like, okay, let's go ahead and read it and get the inspiration and the tips and move forward. So thank you for those recommendations. And I know Atomic Habits is a really powerful book that gets circulated in the entrepreneurial space. So we will definitely go ahead.
If I could add one more, this is a throwback. My high school health teacher made us read this and I didn't appreciate it then, but I appreciate it so much now. The 4 Agreements. Sometimes we can, especially in our wealth journey, we can think that this is other people's problem. This is my life was set up this way. We have control of our own situation. We just have to have that mental shift, that paradigm shift. And reading that book over and over and over again has helped me understand that this is within my control. This is within my spirit control.
You're like the, I don't know, 5th person on the show, and I've read it like 2 or 3 times. But did you say that your high school teacher had you read it?
And this is why I say it all comes back to education, full circle.
It is. I mean, I didn't read it until I was in my late 30s, and I can't imagine. It was a game changer. It certainly was a game changer. It teaches you self-accountability in ways that, you can't learn in different ways. But the fact that you read that in high school, I feel like these are the types of, this is what education is. This is the stuff that people should be learning to help them navigate life. and be resilient or build resilience earlier on. So I'm kudos to your teacher for making you read that, and kudos to you for reading it and rereading it, because I try to read it at least once a quarter as a reminder of, okay, Sabine, not only do you have agency, but you have power, right? Like you get to create what this existence looks like for you. So thank you for bringing that up. So Who Not How, Atomic Habits, and the Four Agreements, we will be sure to link those in the show notes. And if you are a regular listener to the show, you have heard the Four Agreements at least 4 or 5 times now. And if you have not read that book, come on, like let this be the additional sign you need to go ahead and grab it on Amazon. So with that, I know you talked about your books. We have your links to your books, but for those who are listening and watching, if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Well, I would say that I'm always working within my businesses. So if you want to get in contact with me in relation to the app building, the For Our Last Names app, it empowers first generation investors to connect education, investing, be less risky, more profitable, and build a generational wealth for their last name. So if you want to learn more, connect with me there, visit forourlastnames.io. If you are interested in financial education, or you are a corporate organization looking for workshop or curriculum development, you can visit us at rtbinvestments.org. And if you just want to chat about anything Black Wall Street, entrepreneurship, pitching, then you can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Raquel Wilson.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Raquel, for coming on, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, and dropping these practical nuggets. For those of you who are listening or watching, all of her handles will be in the show notes. With that, have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will talk soon. Take care.
Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you found today's conversation helpful or got a piece of insight that you plan to implement in your life, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Sabine Gideon and send me a message, or feel free to leave a review on either Apple or Spotify. I also invite you to share this episode with anyone in your network, another powerhouse possibly, who you think might benefit from today's conversation. Lastly, as always, any links, any resources, or any upcoming training is included in the show notes, so be sure to check that before you leave today. Until we chat again, have a blessed and powerful week.